Welcome to the PropTech Pulse podcast, your inside look at the world of real estate technology. I'm your host, Kyle Hunter, here to guide you through the latest trends, expert insights, and game-changing tech shaping the real estate world. This is your go-to source for staying ahead of the ever-evolving industry. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining PropTech Pulse. Very excited to have Troy Palmquist with me today.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Troy's been in the industry, done a lot of business, but he probably has a better way of explaining his past. So Troy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first off, I'm super grateful to have the opportunity to be here. This is a super cool opportunity. iHeart Studios. I mean, I'm a Sirius XM subscriber, so this is kind of one of those bucket list things. So thank you so much for that opportunity. My background, I've been in the real estate industry going on 23 years this year, I think. I got in really early at 20 years old, so you can do the math at the age now. But I kind of stumbled into real estate, and from there kind of just built this love for, the transaction and the love for really helping people have a experience of being able to find and sell real estate and try and foster a positive experience for people with that. So it led me down the brokerage route, and I ended up in asset disposition for two of the largest buy and flip companies that were privately owned in the United States, where at any given point I was carrying 100 to 150 homes for sale at a given time, and across 4 different states. I think it was 2 different time zones at the time, and really learned a lot about the transaction and the experience and how you can actually help the consumer by being proactive and providing the right information and keeping in contact with the other agents. And so it was kind of just one of those things that through my career I've really set out to say, how can I help as many people have a positive experience buying and selling real estate as possible?
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I think that's really what resonated in the industry. Unfortunately, there's some agents that maybe don't give the best name to the industry, and having that care for really helping buyers and sellers make one of the biggest transactions of their life. That is just a positive, uplifting feeling for getting someone in their dream home, or helping someone in the investment side of the business, whatever it might be. It's very powerful. And, glad to have you doing that. Now, I did want to point out, you actually started a podcast recently, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's the True Crimes of Real Estate, the ways that real estate agents and brokers have lost their license. It's kind of this cautionary tale, but also true crimes. I think everybody likes American greed and likes to hear of, stuff that's happened. And so I launched this with a friend of mine that was her name's Summer Gorlick, and she was originally a DRE for the state of California compliance person and special investigator. So she has a badge from back in the day when she was an investigator. And we started as pen pals. She would send me a letter, and I would write back to her and respond back with a binder full of stuff. And so we were talking last year, and I was like, hey, I want to start a podcast. And I'm like, yeah, I've thought about it, but I didn't want a podcast that was like everything else. I wanted something that could really help provide education to the consumer or to the real estate agent or the broker, and help them understand ways that they could actually lose their license through ways that others have. And so we've filmed 3 episodes now. The first one was a property management company that went awry and, ended up taking a lot of money from the trust accounts, which is, trust accounts are sacred money. Mm-hmm. And so the first episode launched. It was a lot of fun to produce with her. And I think the education that came from it was bits of information that everybody could learn from. And so that's really the goal with that. Is there's a lot of things that happen in the transaction and a lot of things that happen within the brokerage space or as an agent that you might not necessarily not know is illegal, or that you could lose your license for. And in fact, here's a way to educate people. Like, I recently learned that if I paid for your windows to be cleaned and you were reimbursing me, but I paid for it on my American Express Platinum card and I got points for that, that is points, and that is secret profit. Mm-hmm. And I learned that through this. And if you're making any sort of like revenue points or anything like that, it needs to be disclosed to the person in the other side of the transaction that you're working with.
Yeah.
How many agents pay for staging or the power washing or the windows that, like, you know, it's not disclosed that I got Discover cash back or American Express points.
Yeah, no, that one's pretty of a stretch there. But in being with Lone Wolf, and even prior to that, I was with my father's back office real estate company. He was a broker. But when you're dealing with the back office part of the real estate industry, there's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of situations that you run into where, brokerages and agents are doing things that they shouldn't do. And I think that it really resonates because, we'll be on the receiving end of some legal documents that we need to produce for whatever the situation is, because basically, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And I think that you doing this and kind of providing that exposure to how agents and brokerages should be transacting business and keeping above board, you almost need to turn this into a CE class and go all over the country.
I mean, that might be the next thing, is the CE credit for it. I think that would actually be really cool. But I think, educating the real estate agent about things that they should be aware of at their brokerage level, and, educating the broker of things that they might not know about. I mean, one of my pet peeves is the DRE number, the smallest font size on the signage. It's just a pet peeve for me because I can spot it like that. But there's so much other stuff out there, like even down to social media. Is your brokerage name in the social media, description?
Right
is
size.
your DRE number in there? There's so many different things that I think, we just don't know. And it's unfortunate that it's like you start to know when it's too late. And I think by bringing awareness to compliance and, moreover, like the right technology that can help with compliance, because there's still real estate brokerages that keep track of their compliance, and their archives of stuff in a folder or in a Google Drive, not in a transaction software, back office software to help actually keep track of that stuff.
Yeah, no, and obviously, with Lone Wolf having transaction management and back office, it's near and dear to our heart, and something that I think is important. And so appreciate that. Recently, actually at Inman a couple weeks ago, you had a really cool contest, and with HomeCode. So I'd love to hear about HomeCode and kind of how that came about, and what's your plans? What are you doing with that?
Yeah, so HomeCode's a new website platform that I launched. It's, think of a real estate directory for technologies, but also Yelp. So I've written for Inman News and for Housing Wire for a few years, and I wanted to create a place that real estate agents didn't necessarily have a paid wall to look at stuff. And I love my relationship with Inman and Housing Wire, and I'll never stop writing for them because I think it is very important, and what they do is important. But like, I wanted to tell the story a little bit differently, and I've seen a lot of technology through my career, and really love looking at the new stuff and looking at a company's roadmap. But like, even as a prior broker or as an agent, there wasn't a place that I could go and look and say, okay, I'm looking for this, or I'm looking for this. And so then you kind of start Googling and looking for stuff, and like, you never really know what's out there. And so I wanted to create this directory of product. And so HomeCode launched as this directory, and then we took it another step forward where we can leave Yelp style peer-to-peer reviews. So if you're utilizing a platform and you love it, go talk about it, because what happens is it gives the ability for another person that's looking for something that it might be the right fit for, validation that it's the right thing for them, without having to go do a demo and then being harassed by a sales team. But then we took it another step forward and really trying to look at giving the viewers or the readers of these articles and these podcasts that we put on there roadmaps to what other people have done. And so the first interview I did was Kenny Trong from EXP. He's one of the top teams there, Team Fast. He's got a couple hundred agents on his team. And we started talking about, what the technologies are that he uses. And he's not necessarily doing the compliance back office piece because he's got a brokerage that does that, but he's got a dozen other products that his agents are using. And so what does adoption look like? How does it look like to find the right product? and really give somebody that's looking at that the roadmap that if they want to build something like that, there's that opportunity. And then we did another one with another team leader that has a team of 8, and they did 100 and something transactions and no paid leads, all, sphere of influence. His favorite product is Client Giant and Monday.
Okay, yeah.
And so you really start to look at these different things, and for a real estate team leader or a brokerage or an agent, like, this is a roadmap that I think I like, or I love to emulate this piece of this individual's business. And so I didn't think that story had really been told in like a way that resonated with me, and so we built it out to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of peer-reviewed Yelp style. I mean, I don't know how many times, we're looking up a product and my wife says, hey, well, have you checked the comments? Have you checked the ratings? Because somebody's going to say something about whatever the thing is. And it's true in real estate. People want to see validation from their peers and people they trust. And so having that component, I think, gives the ability for agents to really see a true view of what they're about to get into. And it's different for everyone. Every technology is a little bit different in how they use it. Like you said, Monday, I mean, that's a generic solution, but if it works, obviously, then that's what matters, if it works for them. Enjoying the PropTech Pulse podcast? Don't miss a beat. Hit the subscribe button and stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes. And hey, if you're loving the content, leave us a review. It really helps us grow and reach more real estate pros like you. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social channels. We're sharing tips, trends, and behind-the-scenes content you won't want to miss. Find us on all the social platforms at GetElwolf. If you were to start a team brokerage today, or let's just say a team, like if you were building a new tech stack and you said, okay, and really, like, what kind of components would you be looking at?
I think you have to first look at, where your lead generation business is coming from.
Lead gen.
And then kind of build into that. So I think the CRM is, people ask all the time, like, what's the best CRM? Obviously, it's the one that you're going to use.
The one you use.
If you're still using a CRM that's 15 years old, and there are ones out there that are using it, and you are using it, and switching is going to be cumbersome, and it's going to cost you business because it's going to hit also, don't switch. But I think that looking at the CRM first is probably the piece that I would really like dive into. And then from there, look at, are we sphere-based, trying to coach our agents? Are we trying to coach them through social media? Are we trying to coach them through, inbound lead gen? And I think then I would kind of identify how can I coach them correctly through that and really try and help get engagement, because engagement and adoption is the hardest piece of it. You can go sign a contract for a new product and have 100 seats and 100 agents, and that bill doesn't change if 40 of them are using it. So you really do want to get the adoption with it. I think now, as you start looking at the evolution of AI with technology and how some of these companies are making it easier to keep track of what's happening with the the individual person in the CRM, I think that's really cool, which is something that wasn't there 5 or 7 years ago. I think that's really cool, and I think it really does provide value to helping keep track of where the conversation is with somebody. So I think there's a few different ways you got to look at it if you're building from scratch, but I think looking at what the end goal is, and I think fewer products is probably the right way to go if you were starting something and then slowly add stuff to it.
So fewer products, higher adoption, really focus on using what you have. I mean, that's important too.
It is. I mean, make sure you're getting the use out of it. But I think also, like, if you were evaluating something from scratch right now, like, products that play well in the sandbox together, I think is the way of the future. Lone Wolf has been, making leaps and bounds movements with being, friendly with everything now, which I think makes, the best in class products that Lone Wolf has, obtainable to work with everything now. And I think that's great on your guys' part. And I think, looking for those type of products as, as a team or as a brokerage that's, evaluating new stuff is really important, because you're going to find stuff that you want to connect, and connectivity is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I'm glad you pointed that out. We did take a different approach, and that is that, we would love for everyone to use all of our solutions, but we understand that there's different needs in different markets. And so having flexibility and the ability to integrate, definitely we feel is the best route for the future to get people to, really tie their systems together. Because at the end of the day, it's about productivity and it's about getting the most use for, what's going to help you sell business and brokerages run their brokerage. So what do you think? Obviously with HomeCode, you see a lot of tech. There's a lot of people coming in and going. But what do you think is one of the most maybe overhyped trends or things that maybe is being blown up beyond its usefulness right now?
I think just the word AI is kind of played out. I wish there was a way to describe a product different than saying we're AI or we do this or we do that. Like, really getting to the core of what the product was versus saying it's AI. Yeah, everything has a component to that now. But realistically, being able to tell somebody what the product, how it's going to impact their customer and how it's going to impact the, agent's journey helping that customer, I think is a better way to say it. But I think there's categories I think that are highly saturated, like photo rendering and, AI descriptions. There's a bunch of products in there. And I think those kind of categories are still, really looking for the defined leader of who those are going to be and the products that emerge from there. I think there's a lot with data right now that, how do we utilize the data for propensity models to say this buyer is likely to purchase this home when they walk into an open house, or, this seller or this person in my database has been, in the database for X amount of years. And now their propensity model, like, oh, they just had a baby. So they just had a baby and they're buying diapers right now. So in 9 months from starting to buy diapers based on the Vaughn's records, then they'll be ready to, buy a new house and move. But they also just bought a new flat screen TV, so they're not moving. Yeah. So I think propensity scoring, I think it's one of those things that's really like, cool, but I don't think there's really one out there that's crushing it right now.
I agree. I think there's an opportunity. I mean, looking for signals, which there's plenty of them out there, but tying those signals together to really identify when someone is preparing to transact is, it's something we certainly think about and talk about, like, where can we look at all of the data and help identify.
Think about this. If somebody goes to Home Depot and buys a bunch of cleaning supplies, then they go to Best Buy and buy a TV. Are they a buyer or a seller, or are they staying put? Because most of the time, somebody that goes to Best Buy and buys a flat screen TV, they're hanging it up on the wall. They're invested in the house. They're not moving. Versus going to Home Depot and buying some light landscaping and some, cleaning supplies. Are they spring cleaning, or are they getting ready to list the house? And so you get these little data points that, then layer into, mortgage data. Are they looking at websites to do a refinance? Are they getting a credit app pulled? I mean, they're much stronger, potential buyer if they've done that. Are they a buyer or a seller? The diaper curve is something I heard about a long time ago. Somebody does start buying diapers. The likelihood is they're not going to be a seller or a buyer until the baby's a certain age, 9 months, 11 months, that baby's at a point where it's leaving the primary bedroom and going into its own bedroom or nursery. So that's the point that you start looking at them as a seller or a buyer.
It makes sense. I mean, they start walking, you have stairs, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
You need a bigger house. There's too much going on. So yeah, those timing signals are, super important. And I think if you can get a hold of it. What mistakes do you see agents making in selecting tech? Like when they go out and decide to choose something, like what do you think that takes them in the wrong direction?
I think you can look at this not just as an agent, but smaller brokerages or even like bigger brokerages or teams. Like I think that new shiny object really gets people. No matter what it is. I think a good salesperson can really help somebody see what they want them to see. And that's where I think, really having the opportunity to communicate and talk to others that have a product, is this really the right product fit for me? But I think the new shiny object, I think people really do like to see the good in a product. But they need to really ask themselves, is the agent going to use it at the brokerage or on the team? Or as a single practitioner, am I really going to use this? Like, because otherwise you're signing up for something that you're going to forget the website and you're going to forget your username or password, like, unless you're going into it every day. And so I think that, really making sure that it's not just this new shiny object, that is something that you're actually going to use and it's actually going to impact your business, then it's worth doing.
Yeah, it goes back. I had a broker that I was visiting a couple months ago, and he instructs his agents to cancel their credit cards at the end of every year and start a new one, because you don't know how many things they've signed up for and they never see it again. Probably not good advice, but interesting in that, a lot of times they're, picking up things that they really shouldn't be, putting on their credit card or not using.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, even that piece, it's, are you running your business like a business, or are you just running it on subscriptions? Because, I think I could tell you exactly how many subscriptions hit our credit cards, because they get all QuickBooks entered as, annual subscriptions or monthly, reoccurring things. So I can tell you exactly what we signed up for.
well,
But I think that, that, is an even bigger conversation, is that, are a lot of people running their business like a business, or are they just running?
yeah, and that's a great point. How many of them are actually not running their business like they should? Last question. In 5 years, how do you think technology is going to change the industry if you were looking into the future?
I think AI will have defined its space and where it's going to be and how it's going to be used. I don't think that AI is going to replace the real estate agent. I don't think that a computer can really help people make the largest investment in their life, quite arguably for most people. Obviously you can look at, the stock market and stuff like that through, historical ways, but being able to really help somebody understand that, this house does check all the boxes for you, or maybe you should look at this area or this area, or, this or this. I think AI definitely has a place. I think AI really is really good with, looking at data and helping agents understand where their business is at, or how they can convert more, or where their business is lacking. But I think AI has its, its spot that it kind of fits into. But I don't think that technology replaces the human interaction that real estate is, whether it's on a brokerage level with their agents, which are their customers, or the agent and the buyer or the seller. This is a human relationship business. It's hard to, I think, replace that. And I think you see that, technology and, ease of transacting with, the stock market and how you trade stocks, was replaced. There's not very many stock brokers anymore. You don't call to trade stocks anymore. It's not going to be that way with real estate. And so I think that, that human touch is never going to go away. And I just don't think that in 5 years that it's gone. I think in 5 years you might have more ways to remember to keep in touch with people and more assisted types of operations. But I think AI as a catchphrase will probably be a little less familiar. I think it'll become standard in stuff.
Yeah, no, I two points. One, I think the AI just vernacular is going to go away, and it's going to be, well, this does this, and the AI component pulls out. And so I agree, that'll just be embedded into whatever you're describing. And then, real estate's a belly-to-belly business. People want to have that relationship. They want to see the person. They want to interact. And all the AI of the world's not going to be able to take that human relationship away. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
So, Troy, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to the PropTech Pulse podcast. Looking to take your real estate game to the next level? Check out our cutting edge tools. Visit lwolf.com to learn more and see how we can help you succeed. I'm your host, Kyle Hunter, and I'll catch you next time as we continue exploring the future of real estate together. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected. Until then, keep innovating and thriving in the world of real estate.